very good afternoon to all of you. We are inching closer to the lunchtime, but nevertheless, we still have the energies in us to sustain us till then. I'm Anupam, Nidhi. I come in from the city of lakes, which is Udaipur, Rajasthan. And just a while back, you would have seen there was an MOU that happened, and I think we didn't speak much about it. So while leaving, Rishikesh mentioned to me, you must speak about it. So I must thank CSC, the entire team up there led by Rishikesh and Sanjay, and of course the people whom we have been interacting, Gunjan, Amit, for kind of seeing that potential in our women. We are, we operate in these, if you look at the 5 districts of Rajasthan, which is basically the southern part of Rajasthan and Uttarakhand, and we have been over the last many years as part of our CSR been working with almost like 27,000 women, farmers, around 30,000 families, and many others in terms of the population base when we come in as direct beneficiaries. You were talking about impact, so as direct beneficiaries of that. So this association was at 2 levels. One was generic, that we as SZL, Hindustan Zinc, and as CSC commit ourselves to the development of that region, to explore not just Rajasthan and Uttarakhand, but beyond, and see how we could take on the learnings of the programs that are being driven across India and kind of support them in CSR, the larger scope of it. The second part was on bringing in women and the farming micro-enterprises together on the eGrameen portal and creating that collaborative strength. So now over to my session and the elements that I have been asked to work on, which is the key areas in the space of CSR. Aaj subah se, since morning, there have been a lot of keywords which have been going. Maybe some keywords from the audience here. आप लोगों के लिए क्या वो शब्द ऐसे रह गए आपके दिमाग में जो आपको लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं या तो आप कर रहे हैं या तो आज उसकी और ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है या आगे आने वाले समय में they would be the ones which will actually become very important for each one of us sitting here or most of us sitting here. So some words there that you would have kind of heard since morning, or some terminologies or some aspects, if I may. Impact, okay, very, sorry? Scale, okay. Very relevant. Impact, yes, is something that, anything that we do, in the morning we heard one of our speakers, sorry? Awareness, okay, sure. Security, cyber security or otherwise as well, creating safe spaces, not just for the adults or the senior citizens, but also for the children. बच्चों के लिए भी safe spaces create करने, चाहे वो schools में हो, चाहे वो neighborhood में हो, चाहे beyond हो. Anything else? Okay, so let's introspect some of these. Clearly, impact is what everybody is going forward, and we spoke in the morning, purpose and the power of coming together to kind of do CSR. So the purpose element is what is impact. If you do not have that purpose, the vision, the larger focus that you would like to achieve, then clearly, kind of at most of the times, it would still be a charity or philanthropy where you do an intervention, there's an output, but then you do not measure what's really happened, how it has really made a difference to the community or the individuals or the beneficiaries that you intended to reach out to. So impact definitely is in space. So where I am hitting on is whether that's security, whether that's awareness across all levels, in terms of not on the programs or the government schemes, but it's also about within, if you look at general themes that we keep hearing about is healthcare, education, maybe environment, infrastructure, kind of livelihood, and all those things are the generic umbrellas. Now within that, what will come prime up would be the larger focus on, if I look at why we are all sitting here, is to collaborate, to co-create, to partner. And that comes in with the larger focus of, again, impact. That what I am doing good as Hindustan Zinc, can I join hands with a CSC or a PayPal or an XYZ other, or the kind of institutions that we have on ground, the VLEs, and increase the scale of that impact. So as you rightly said, scale, impact, those are the ulterior agendas that we have. So to reach to that level, collaboration, partnership, co-creation becomes a very, very important piece, and that's something that we will all see going forward. So one area is that instead of we being in silos, कि education में teachers ही देख रही थी, principals ही देख रहे थे, उनकी education bodies, governing bodies ही देख रही थी, कहीं ना कहीं corporates जुड़ गए हैं through their CSI interventions, development sector जुड़ गए हैं through their interventions, government any which ways is an overarching element. So creating those very important silos, partnerships, and breaking the silos and creating partnerships and going beyond is something which is what is going to be the future of how CSR needs to be looked at a very thought level, at a very strategy level. The other pieces that will come in would be, if you look at all these healthcare, education, everything else is inclusive development. It talks about inclusivity. But when it talks about inclusivity, the whole focus is on creating those services back to the communities. And that's where I want to bring in a very important point. Inclusivity you bring in, you initiate a program, you do deliver a program, but at the end of the day, are these programs sustainable? Can these programs measure the test of time? Or are these looking at the larger ecosystem focus that is at the global level, the SDGs, at India or at the corporate level, or otherwise is the Indian development goals? Are they being able to anchor some of the key indicators or key focus areas which these aspects have identified for them? And now probably the latest one being the ESG, environment, social and governance aspects, where all the corporates are working towards. So looking at how you could bring in your understanding and your impact spaces. I may not be able to impact pan-India, but if I'm able to impact in 5 districts of Rajasthan as Hindustan Zinc, how am I think, can we go back to the main slide, because this will distract. This is a separate element I just wanted to. Yes, thank you. So how are we really impacting in our own spaces to meet that particular agenda? It could be those indicators identified. So again, a key focus towards a concerted effort. So first is looking at the partnerships, co-creation, collaboration. The other C is concerted effort towards meeting those agendas, those indicators. Those will become very key aspects for us to drive our CSR, or however we would like it to be called. Now within these two very broad pillars, what comes in as an important piece going forward as education, and then we have been as CSR focusing a lot on children and children specific elements. But I think it's very important, and recent government announcement also in the union budget is about the focus on teachers. And I think that's where the whole, of course, it's not that diets were not there earlier, or the focus on teachers' trainings were not there, or their capacity or their strengthening. But going forward, that will only enhance and probably become a bigger magnitude, because it's understood that if you can and if you have to sustain educational elements and its outcomes into the larger social fabric, then teachers or the professors or the facilitators, the education space, that fraternity has to be strengthened. And they will ensure that there is a sustenance of impact every time, year-on-year basis, academic year basis. And that's where I think a lot of investments will go in as we grow forward, because it's understood, and courtesy COVID, we understood that kind of you need to enhance that level of capability, not just on the syllabus, but on the pedagogy, the mechanism, the methodology, the technology as well. So looking at all those aspects, I think the key focus would be, and what I heard a lot of us talking about, that triangle of industry, institution, which is academic institution, the children in the center, but there's one angle which is missing, which is the teaching fraternity. And that will become a very key focus as we go forward. The third, or rather the fourth aspect too would be on unleashing the potential. You know, when I say unleashing the potential, it's about the youth or catching them young. And hence, focus on, at the school level, on the pre-vocationalization aspect, and going forward on the larger vocationalization or skilling aspect will become a very, very important, not that it is not. 2012 onwards, ever since India has taken up the leaps and bounds towards skilling, creating a separate ministry for skilling, we have come to that maturity where this needs to be taken up to the next level. We have German government as well as Scandinavian country governments are coming to India to bring in their understanding about vocationalization, about their vocational education and training. So there, again, there's an element, and this cannot be disconnected from the school element. So as MEP also talks about, the pre-vocationalization element has to be initiated much before a child decides to take up vocational training or otherwise. But it has to be also an orientation, a live, where they actually dirty their hands, they see things, they understand it, and then decide what they would like to become in future. And we just heard a while back from our speaker that MSME is the main hub of how the industrialization and so-called from automation to the digitalization industry 4.0 will happen to India. And that will become the unit. And that's where I believe the CSR elements will, over a period of time, strengthen. The next element is technology. Interweaving all of these is a very important piece which we talked about. And I don't want to talk much about on the technology because everybody understands what it is and how it's far spreading it is. But what we do not understand and what we were discussing this morning in both in the panel discussion and in the main forum as well is creating the safe spaces. And ma'am, as you mentioned, awareness. This is the other side of the flip side of the coin, as in too much awareness, too much of exposure to our children, unfortunately, fortunately, also creates another aspect which we need to be ready with. And I think each one of us, whether those are schools or whether those are NGOs, media, academia, whatever we would want to, or corporate side, have to add value to that. So cyber security or creating, I would say cyber security is one side of it, but creating those larger safe spaces for our children and our youth is a very important space that we really need to focus, which we are not doing enough. And there needs to be a kind of a strategized, collective effort in that direction that we really need to work on. And that's something I believe, and I'm bringing on those elements which will eventually, over a period of time, as I see through my years of gray hair, will actually come into the play. Of course, lastly, what I would really want to add on to is that this has been happening, not that some of these elements that I listed out, and I didn't want to bring in the regular elements that we all understand, those thematic areas, but what will be the crux of whatever we do is to enhance or increase the local economy, strengthen the local economy. That will always become a perspective, whether you're talking about urban areas, peri-urban areas, या गांव की बात कर रहे हैं. हमारे पास एक फोकस हमेशा रहेगा कि किस तरह से आप उनकी लोकल इकोनॉमी को इन्हांस कर सकें, चाहे वो एजुकेशन के थ्रू हो, चाहे वो स्किल सेट्स के थ्रू हो, चाहे वो लाइवलीहुड अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ या ब्रिंगिंग इन टेक्नोलॉजी इनटू एग्रीकल्चर और ब्रिंगिंग इन टेक्नोलॉजी इनटू their learning skills or otherwise, or creating safe spaces through technology aspect. It will, or creating micro enterprises and bringing in technology so that they can be far more productive. So all of that will lead into enhancing the local economy part of it. The second focus that will always sustain for all of us would be to improve the living conditions of the communities or people that we work with. Irrespective whether we are bringing in financial inclusion or we are bringing in elements on healthcare, focus on nutrition, as our Prime Minister keeps talking about, and his larger vision for India, and focus on anemia, and the recent focus on sickle cell anemia to be completely removed from this space itself by 2047. I think those are things which is another aspect. So when we plan our initiatives, our furtherance, I think these are two important buckets that we all need to focus on. And education becomes a very strong, strengthening element which will ensure the sustainability of whether economic development, prosperity, or for that matter, the whole element of improving the living conditions of people. So this is the largest structure as I place it for you. And very quickly to talk about what we do at Hindustan Zinc, it would be incomplete if I do not present to you. We kind of work in the same space as I just mentioned to you about. And what is very interesting is the power of collaboration, the power of partnership that we have been able to unravel over the last few years is immense. And we look forward to your platform, Rishikesh, to take it forward and see how it could be worked on. And kind of, if you now go on to the slides. Okay, I'll just take 2 more minutes on that and then show you a small snippet of what we actually do, one of those programs that we work on. So we are, as I mentioned, we are placed in Rajasthan, Uttarakhand, and Gujarat. Looking at almost like 234 villages, which is extensive amount of work that we do, and another 2,000 plus villages where we work through our Anganwadi initiatives, which are Khushi and Nandghar programs. Some of you would have heard about it. What I wanted to highlight was that as one of the largest integrated miner for zinc and lead, and probably the second largest in when it comes to, or rather 6th largest, if I may say, globally or for silver. I think what we have been looking at is where at the core where we are working, we need to enhance the economies of those villages, of those areas, and strengthen them so that they could kind of create their own independent institutions. Not going further on any of these, rest is all something that you can understand from the websites and read about us. This is how we look at our focus in terms of, as I mentioned, the economic well-being part of it and the quality of life. So some of these are aspects that we have as a vision for us. And 2025, we have a target clearly defined, and we believe as Hindustan Zinc, we may not be able to achieve along with our beneficiaries or our other collaborators will be as important as others. What I wanted to share with you here was the whole collaboration piece can only be brought in if we have created very strong ground institutions. And those institutions mean that those beneficiaries that you've identified, you actually strengthen them to create their own organizations. And organizations which are legal bodies, which can give them that kind of a platform. We talked about inclusivity. I think that's the best way to bring them to that inclusive level where they own it. And I cannot see any other best comparison other than the VLEs that CSE has been promoting. That's the real kind of institutionalization that you're doing. You're creating them to be their own owners, and over a period of time, they will bring many more empowered people around them. And hence, you're creating clusters, and that dynamo effect will be seen over the period of time. So we too have been doing so. We work on sports. We have a complete foundation which focuses on grassroots football in a very tribal location in Udaipur in Rajasthan. And I welcome you to come and see some of the work that we'll be doing, and how our boys are going and joining the Indian camp, and being part of the national team. Sakhi is what I would like to focus on. Maybe I'll just quickly talk about it. Samadhan is the agriculture initiative that we do. Nothing new in terms of FPOs country has been developing, but these are FPOs that we have been, where we have taken the CSR element out and brought about the future of CSR, which is the business focus. So bringing them through an institutionalized way, creating their own spaces, making them the owners of their own decisions. And that's what our FPOs that we have established in Rajasthan are working towards. And they have their own shops, input shops, they have their own micro enterprises, and they decide their own business plans. When I say business plans, they're actually deciding what would they do in a period of probably the next 12 months, the 4 seasons or 3 seasons that they have, and how much earning that they will try and get for. So they are not looking at it as just an agriculture. For them, it's an industry now. For them, it's a business, and they're focusing on the resources, the utilization of those resources, and how they can be efficient, whether that's in a drought-prone area or whether that's in a flood-prone area, whatever that challenge, they are looking at it in the collective format. And there are other initiatives that we are doing within our programs where there are institutions that have been created, whether that's at the Anganwadi level, where the village itself is working towards the improvement, strengthening of the Anganwadis, and whether that's at the Sakhi level, which is where we have our federations coming up. And that's where I say convergence is my final input to you guys. Convergence is an important piece, how you converge. And within this room, if you sit down and spend probably half an hour, move from one table to the other, one person to other, we will find such a huge potential of partnerships and collaboration possibilities, and then the convergence possibilities that we don't really need to step out. And I think that's a wonderful thing that CSE has actually picked up. I would look forward that CSE could, beyond these sessions, annual sessions, do many more such sessions to see what is the delta impact happening beyond the programs that CSE has identified for themselves, because there's just so much that we all can actually create value within ourselves for the larger good of the people. At this note, I'll stop myself and I'll request my colleagues there to play a film. This is about our program Sakhi. Sakhi is an initiative that we've been doing with almost like 27,000 women across these 6 districts, across 2 states, and rest let them speak.